Thank you all for joining this evening. We are so lucky to have Jason from Live Better again with us tonight. I loved the session we did with Jason about a month ago. We actually recorded that and we have it on YouTube so we can share that out. But Jason has just like a wealth of knowledge in this space. And so we're gonna spend some time doing a little bit of meditation practice. So and I'm just so glad you guys are all here tonight too, to just like carve out some space, unwind from the day, and just give yourself some time for a little self-love when the world can feel super heavy sometimes. So I know we have a few more people hopping in. Again, thank you all for being here. Before we kind of get into, or I pass the reins over to Jason, we have Tasha Copeland on with us tonight. She's a aSweatLife ambassador. Oh. I'll mute you, Gus, I think. And Tasha is the founder of the Elevate Box. And so one of you tonight is going to get an Elevate Box, which we're going to send to you. So Tasha, do you want to just say a couple things about it? And then I'll have you pick a number to send the Elevate Box to.
Yes. Hey everyone. So the Elevate Box, it's a monthly subscription box that's curated to be an accountability partner. And actually, let me turn off my background so you guys can actually see the box. But it's curated to be an accountability partner in a box. So each month you get items that are geared towards self-care, personal development, personal growth, and fitness. So there's things like books, candles, fitness apparel, healthy snacks, and all this fun stuff, really to kind of reward yourself and also motivate you to help hit your goals. So this is the box for February, and each month is tied to a theme. The theme for February was romanticize your life. So it's just like tons of good stuff, all tied to that particular theme of romanticizing your life and really just embracing that main character energy to live your best life. So excited for this giveaway. I feel like normally whenever I do giveaways or have to guess a number, I always choose the exact same number. So I'm going to go out of the box this time. And what are my options?
Well, so there's 15 of you on right now. So let's do 1 through 15. Okay. I wonder if your number is in between that.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to say number 14.
Number 14. We got Natalie Casper. Natalie.
Oh my God, this is so great. I got a free bagel today. Now I want a box. It's my lucky day. I'm going to go play the lottery.
Hell yeah.
So cool.
Get after it. All right, Thank Natalie, you. Box coming your way. I'll connect you with Tasha.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Tasha. Thanks. No problem. All right, let's get into this. I'm going to pass the reins over to Jason. I do want Jason to talk a little bit before we get into the meditation about an organization he's very passionate about. I think in a time, in the world when it can feel a little out of control, sometimes we're looking for ways to give back and care about others. So I'd love for Jason to just talk a little bit about organization where he spends a lot of time to give back, and we can hear about how we can donate, and then we'll get into the meditation. Jason, you down?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Kelly. Last time on the first one, I waited until the end to talk about it, but working with aSweatLife this month, obviously to talk to you guys about meditation and mindfulness and how we can kind of bring that into our high performance and busy daily lives. But before I do that, one of the main pieces of awareness that I'm trying to drive, I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Dance with Mweni. A lot of you probably know Bettina Gozo or have maybe seen her on Apple Fitness now, but she used to live in Chicago. She's a fitness professional. We've been friends for a long time through Nike and through training. And she started a nonprofit called Dance with Mweni. And the mission is to serve children and adults with physical and mental disabilities in underserved areas, specifically in Kenya. And Bettina was going to Kenya for a couple of years in a row to support the mission directly, where she would go and stay at these homes and take care of these children, and kind of fell in love with the kids and wanted to do more. So she developed this nonprofit around that. And some of her friends and my very close friends are on the board. And the way that we support these children used to be through homes, but now it's actually directly to the families. So we support the development of the children by supporting their families, by providing them home care, things like tuition, transportation, medical supplies, things like that, that kind of just go overlooked. They're not necessarily like the huge things in their lives, but even just like toiletries and things to help their family support those children directly. And it's kind of an insane discrepancy on how much that costs for us here in the United States, as opposed to how much that costs for these kids in Kenya. So like for the same amount we buy coffee for every year, you can pay for like high grade medical care for a kid for the entire year that has to visit a hospital once a week. So we've been doing a lot to raise awareness around that. We're going to start to do some more like live fitness events. But a lot of the speaking and workshops that I've been doing have been tied to this mission that I'm very passionate about. So in the chat, I put a link to the organization on there. You can donate $1, like actually seriously helps. So $1, $5, $10, whatever you feel is good or necessary. I know we all have causes that we care about and that we're passionate about, and many of them need our help right now. But if you've got some extra, or the organization kind of piques your interest or is in line with what you like to donate to, we would love all of your support. So just wanted to start with that. For tonight's workshop, I would love to hear first, and you guys can either pop off mute and talk about this, or if you'd like me to just kind of talk through it, would love anybody who did the first one to just throw some reflections in the chat. So we did one of these right at the end of January, and to just give a brief refresher, if you weren't on the first one, but you are on this one. At Live Better, we teach a lot of different things, from fitness to yoga to running to productivity workshops. We run retreats, we work with kids, we work with corporate groups. And the goal is really to span the spectrum of health and kind of understand that all of those puzzle pieces fit together to make us feel healthy. And then to use that health to then push us forward in all of our professional pursuits, our personal pursuits, whether those be passion related or side hustle related. And on the back end of that, we tend to frame mindfulness and meditation and think of these terms, I think, now that they've gotten buzzy in a little bit of a cliche way, like almost as a box that we have to check. And meditation, I think, has a little bit of a stigma that comes along with it if it's not something that you regularly practice. Like, we need to empty our mind of all of our stressors and be in this perfect kind of Zen Buddhist state to achieve any type of relaxation at all. And that's just not true. So to kind of segue from what we do in this overall holistic picture down to the very granular specific topic of meditation, we like to make that actionable to athletes, to people who work in a corporate environment, to moms and dads, to 6-year-olds in kindergarten classes. I think taking a break for us, being able to reflect and evaluate how we feel, understanding where we've been, where we are now, and where we want to go, trying to contextualize that, remove ourselves from the busyness of our everyday stressors and course correct, is an extremely valuable performance skill. But it also just generally leads to happier and healthier behavior, because we're not like a snowball picking up steam rolling down a hill. We get these times to step out of the rat race and our stressors and the things that are kind of driving us for more and more and more, and actually allow us to evaluate kind of how we're feeling. And I think what's interesting, I was kind of talking with Kelly before this, we went from, still in a pandemic, but went from what was pretty gnarly the last 2 years to the week that, if you live in Chicago, our mask mandates are moving straight into a war. And I think it's just sort of interesting to think about that these things also happen on this big macro level, and that's generally how we kind of think about a lot of challenges in the world. But then we don't take a lot of time to reflect on how those things sort of affect us as individuals. And coming out of 2020 and 2021, mental health is now at the forefront of what we're talking about for health, because I think that period of isolation and uncertainty kind of left us in this high level of alert. And the people in Ukraine and the people in Russia right now are obviously feeling that at an extreme, immense, like almost immeasurable level. And I think it's just worth thinking about, how do we try and pull ourselves away from a consistent 24-hour news cycle, and the way that those things might affect you individually. It doesn't have to be Russia-Ukraine conflict related. It doesn't have to be COVID related. It could be any of these sort of like triggers for you, right? That push us into a state where we feel overwhelmed. And that's exactly what meditation tries to pull us out of. Rather than getting caught on that treadmill of stress, we get to course correct, decide and identify sort of how we want to feel, and then move ourselves further in that direction. So if any of you on the first one would like to throw in any notes, if you have been meditating all month, I would love to hear, if you weren't meditating before and you are now, how some of those things may have changed. Kelly put in that she loved counting in her breath work because it really calms her nerves. One of the most accessible and easy ways to start meditating is simply to count your breath. When we're talking about meditation, before I actually lead you through one, your brain needs something to focus on. It can't focus on nothing. So in order to get into that state of focus, we can provide it just a little math equation, right? We can just count numerically, or give it a cadence, or give it a pattern. And when our brain focuses on that pattern, it does not focus on all of the stressors that you're trying to like move away from, right? Or address. So by giving the brain something to refocus on, we can also rewire it a little bit. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. And that's exactly what we're going to do with our first meditation, which will be kind of focused around balanced breathing. We touched on this a little bit in the first one, but I'm going to let this kind of draw out a little bit longer for this meditation. So if you are in a seat, I would recommend that you get your feet flat to the floor. You can find a comfortable position. If you're on your back and are choosing to lie down, I would recommend bending your knees and bringing your feet flat to the floor rather than leaving your legs out nice and long, just so you don't fall asleep. If your aim is to fall asleep, please go ahead and do that. And then just gently close your eyes. I want you to start simply by taking really easy breaths in and out through your nose or through your mouth. Only thing I want you to concentrate on is simply slowing down. And as you settle into that easy, slow breathing here, I want you to let that sense of ease and calm also extend through the rest of your body. So a lot of the times when we start to breathe or we start to meditate or want to relax, we focus on more of the upper part of our body, in through our lungs, and allowing our belly to expand. But I also want you to feel your eyelids kind of go heavy. I want you to take any of the stress out of your upper back and out of your neck. Take any of the tension out of your hips. Let your hands unclench. And just settle into the most relaxing physical position you can get yourself in. And as you start to settle into that position, I want you to start to just breathe in and out through your nose. So in workshop number 1, we worked a lot on nasal breathing, and we talked about why that's important. We're meant to breathe in and out through our nose unless you are doing some type of high intensity activity. Better airflow, more oxygen, a better control over our heart rate, a better filter for our air. And as you get used to nasal breathing, I want you to then return back to the sensation that each breath is light, slow, and easy. If we want to start to still and calm and stabilize our mind, we also want to do the same thing for our physical body. And when we breathe like this, our nervous system allows our body to calm down. We feel the temperature of our body start to drop, just like it does when you fall asleep. We want to feel physical tension come out of our body as heart rate comes down and our sense of ease takes over. First part of this meditation is going to be more about the cadence, and the second part is going to be more contemplative and reflective. So we're going to begin by adding a count to our breathing. I want you to breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 4. So in through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1, and out for 4, 3, 2, 1. In 4, 3, 2, 1. Out 4, 3, 2, 1. Just like that. And I want you to repeat that at your own pace. So if you feel like drawing that count out to longer than 1 full second, you can slow down your counting. If that felt a little fast, you can speed up the count. But all we're trying to do is just maintain a nice easy pattern of an equal inhale to exhale and maintain a sense of balance. For the first few cycles, I want you to focus on maintaining that cadence or that pattern of in for 4 and out for 4 through your nose. But if it's more comfortable for you to switch to in through your nose and out through your mouth, or you ever need to just release or relax some tension, feel free to take a big exhale out and then restart. Just remember, even though we've still added a count to our breathing of in for 4 and out for 4, we still want to maintain a sense of light, slow, and easy breathing. We want to feel that kind of deep down in our belly, not allowing our shoulders to rise and fall, but instead our belly to expand and contract. I want you all to perform 4 more cycles where you are focused on counting inhale for 4, exhale for 4. And at the end of those 4 cycles, I want you just to maintain a sense of ease in your breathing, keeping your eyes closed, but don't feel like you have to count. Now that we've been doing this for almost 5 minutes, you should feel that pattern kind of locked in your brain. So even if you don't count, your inhales and exhales will likely get pretty close to being balanced. And now as you sort of settle into your space and you let that breathing pattern remain natural, we're going to start to reflect. I want you to think back through the month of February, maybe with a starting date of this first workshop if you were there for that, or any type of event that kind of marked the beginning of February. And I want you to reflect back on just kind of an easy timeline on all of the good things that happened to you in the month of February. What were some of your small wins you had? It could be as simple as somebody comping your bagel order for breakfast, to winning a big project at work, to one great day of training or exercise, to a tough conversation that you had been putting off. Maybe you're making little incremental or big strides towards a New Year's resolution. Just be openly reflective of the month. And as we sit here and kind of breathe easy, more of those things might reveal themselves to you. While we're being reflective in this time that you've reserved for yourself, I think it's really important to start to count up some of these little wins, some of these little good moments, and taking the time to actually reflect on them. Because when large challenges or difficulties in your life loom, it's really easy to skip over all of the good things that are present in your life. It's really easy to skip over all of the things that are going your way in the background, even though that's not what you are choosing to focus on. And if you're sitting there breathing, thinking, I don't think I have a lot of good, it's been a lot of challenge, then I would force you to pick out some of the small things that you can focus on, even if you need to start with just today. Our motto at Live Better is have the best day ever, every single day. And sometimes that can come off as a little bit of fleeting optimism and blind hope. But instead, what it actually is a focus on making sure we can control the things that we know that push the needle forward. It's choosing to find the good in the day, regardless of how tough it is. It's choosing to make the next moment better. That comes in the context with bad things are going to happen. And we choose what we reflect on. We choose what we kind of put in that win jar. Are we going to let the bad overcome the good? Or are we going to choose to reflect on what is good in our lives and allow that momentum to carry us forward? So as you are being reflective here over February, I want you to pick out some of those good moments and then maybe pick a winner. What's the best thing that's happened to you in February? It doesn't necessarily have to be the most monumental, just whatever made you feel the best. That could be as small as one cup of coffee that blew your mind in your favorite coffee shop. That could have been a nap you took. That could have been a hug you got, all the way up to one of those big work wins or a race you ran. And I want you to focus on and reflect on how that made you feel. the one thing we realize is that happiness is a byproduct of being purposeful and intentional and doing things that drive purpose in our life. Happiness is not in and of itself an inherent goal. It is a consequence of something good happening that allows ourselves to feel happy as an emotional state, not as a destination. And that's exactly what reflection and taking some space and some time can help us do. We remove our mind and body from stress and we refocus it on the reflection of something good. We identify those emotional states of being and how those things made us feel. And then we turn around and then we take that momentum forward. Being reflective in meditation like this helps us to reframe that physical and mental state. To finish this meditation, I want you to return back to that easy cadence, that easy balanced breathing of in for 4, out for 4. Light, slow, easy breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. I want you to take 2 more cycles, just like that. And then at the end of those 2 cycles, you may gently blink your eyes open. And just kind of come back to your space. And whether on video, I'm not going to call on anybody if you're super chill, but if you'd like to pop off mute, don't even have to turn your video on and just kind of share how you're feeling. I would love that. You can also throw it in the chat. I think that type of meditation just easily helps us find balance. And I didn't really frame it this way, but like that was kind of the mantra for that, right? Is to remain balanced and sort of even keel, let our mind and our body kind of stabilize, and then start to think through some things rather than try and force, that sense of gratitude under an immense amount of stress. So 2 of you put calm in there, which is perfect. I would kind of define calm as not necessarily chill, but kind of even keel. When someone is very calm, we also like to add cool and collected to the end of that too. It's right. It's just like being in that nice stable place where we can kind of let our thoughts remain balanced at the same time, where we're not experiencing any extremes, either high or low. Somebody came off mute. If you want to come back on and share. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
I can add something too. I was just thinking that I wonder if you have a suggestion for this, is I wish I would do that, like the practice we just went through, instead of like during the day when I feel like I need a mental break, I'll like scroll, I'm like, if I could just do that instead, like I feel like I would feel like $1,000,000. I need to like get the phone out of the room, I think.
Yeah, that it's really difficult. I think everybody kind of has experiences with this, but like our technology is built to addict us to it. So there's a reason why the little red circle is the size it is and why the noises sound like they do. And Instagram and TikTok are doing literally everything they can to keep your eyeballs on it. And we have a ton of default habits where when we find respite from what we feel like is work, or what is work, we have these natural habits that we turn to, like scrolling. Every time we end up in a line somewhere, phones are out. We're waiting for an elevator, phones are out. We're sitting in a waiting room, phones are out. Right? You're like, even next time you travel, just look around an airport terminal. Every single person has their head buried in their phone. And one of the books I'm reading right now, I can't remember if I mentioned it in the last one or not. It's called Deep Work by Newport. And it's has a direct link to exactly what we're talking about here. And he is a pretty high level researcher and is publishing a ton of papers on top of having a job, on top of teaching. So his kind of anecdotal points personally are pretty valuable, but he also goes through everybody from a creative field to computer programmers to CEOs. And he talks about different types of work. You can kind of guess from the title if you've never read it. Deep work is obviously about trying to find an immense amount of focus. And shallow work is what we do when we answer emails and we scroll and we're being more task focused. You don't really necessarily need to know this, but like one part of your brain is in charge of multitasking, and it's in charge of doing those little everyday tasks. Like I need to answer my phone, and then I know my emails here, and I have a to-do list that's sort of sitting in the front of my brain, and I got to pick up my kid from this, and I'm kind of remembering to do that, right? That is the part of our brain that's sort of involved in those daily shallow tasks. But the other part of our brain, the creative part, the part that allows us to have things like pattern recognition, be creative. That's why you see people in creative fields look like they're just kind of messing around. You almost need a sense of complete calm and boredom to actually then start to stimulate some of that creative growth. Otherwise, we're only focused on doing our to-do list. Most of the times our to-do list are these kind of like little like menial tasks, right? So Natalie shared she was less panicked about the little things because you had to take note of the good things from the month. Well, those little things are never going away. You're always going to have laundry, dishes, like and stuff to do, right? Those things are never going away. But how do we take dedicated breaks away from that? And that has to start, Kelly, the kind of long story short, coming back to getting ourselves away from those little distractions. And we can't make those little distractions addicting. And technology, especially social media, does that perfectly, right? Like, and I think the counter argument to that might be, well, hey, when I'm scrolling, that is kind of mindless effort for me, like, right? That helps me calm down, or that helps me take a break from work. While that might make you feel like that, what it's actually doing is just addicting you to more input. And you're not in control of what that input is, even if you've curated your feed to only give you things that are relevant to you. So what doing things like this, what carving out space and sort of like being by yourself and being reflective away from technology and taking that space, even if it's really, really, really difficult at first, is that you control what the inputs are. Meditation allows you to do that with more skill, and it is a skill. So the first time you do it, if you're like, my brain was rattling around, I was thinking about all those to-do list things, like Russia, Ukraine came up on my mind, COVID came up on my mind, right? Like those things are going to grab our attention, and they're going to keep us focused on that. But taking breaks from that then allows us to refocus and think about the things that we want, not what someone wants for us, which is what social media is doing basically in perpetuity. So I think it's realizing what habits are we building where we go from high stress or day job work to, well, what am I doing to de-stress? Are we actually becoming less stressed by doing those activities, or is that just a band-aid on our time because that's what we default to? And this is hard for me too. I'll be the first to admit, like, meditation actually comes it's fairly difficult for me. And actually the kind of like westernized physical practice of yoga is really just a facilitation of the mental practice of yoga, which is really what it's all about. We've just like westernized yoga into a workout, but running, walking, being outside for me, like, that's meditative, and that puts me in a state where I can be more contemplative about the things I want to think about. It's almost like a buffer for me to get into more deep thinking or more deep work. And what are those facilitators? I would probably imagine for most of us that social media is not actually a great facilitator of being reflective and being calm, it's just sort of a mindless activity, and those two things are different. I don't think having some frivolous activity is bad in any sense, but I think we want to be pretty clear about what we want to get out of it, and that's what something like that on the reflection, I think, is really important. And thanks, Nick. I got from the last name. I think what Nick shared, that he was finally able to get into a rhythm, and then his whole body kind of finally calmed down. And it's interesting because for most of us, especially if you carry around a heavy amount of stress, on the backside of that, like, sleep comes pretty easy, because your body just wants to kind of shut down. And I think it's interesting to think about if you are, and Nick, not necessarily saying like this is just to you, but I think for everybody, if we go right from work to sleep pretty frequently, I think that's kind of a good prompt to be more reflective about kind of how we spend our time, because if your body wants to completely shut off after that, right, we're giving a lot of our energy to one activity without any of these things that also make up the rest of our life, which I think is kind of important to then go back and reflect on. Some of those small wins are like, hey, I grabbed like a nap midday and that made me feel incredible. Or I took a walk midday and that made me feel incredible. Let's do more of that. The purpose of reflection is not simply just to reflect and take the break. It's to then take all those good things and then set up our life, set up our schedule, set up our professional, kind of the way we go about work in different ways that are more productive, that help us be more calm, more contemplative, without forcing something extra on our to-do list. So thank you guys so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions about that meditation specifically? And it could be anything, right? Like Kelly's question was awesome. I find myself scrolling. How do I stop doing that? Does anyone have any other questions like that? You can either throw them in the chat or come off mute. And it's okay if not.
I just want to add that I love that it's almost like a meditation with what people do a lot of times with journaling, like to reflect on their day and like talk about like what's one thing that's good for the day, reflection via journaling. Like it almost feels like a journaling, just but you're not writing, like you're just like thinking about it. And I like that part of it.
It's exactly what it is. And both are important. Sometimes when I'm journaling, because it takes more time to put my pen to the paper, I lose like a kind of a stream of consciousness. And sometimes I find that it's equally annoying that I let my stream of consciousness go and then I forget to write something down, which is why I think both practices sort of have their place in somebody's like kind of overall mindfulness practice. So yeah, I think that's an awesome note to add, that both are great ways to do it. I think journaling provides a great way for us to make some of those thoughts concrete, and it gives you a lens into how you were thinking about the world and your perspective at that time, which is awesome to look back on. There's a really cool journal called One Line a Day. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it, but it comes in this like tiny little book. And it has each year stacked one over the other. So you write one line for 2020, one line for 2021. And that day comes back every year and you can see what you thought about on that day. Brett, my co-founder at Live Better, has been doing this for almost a decade. So he has 2 notebooks that he can stack, and he can see on February 28, 2020, and for 2015, exactly what he was thinking about for that day. And what's kind of crazy along the lines of being reflective and doing this type of practice is he can look back and see the lens at which he was looking through the world. Like you can see what he was complaining about. You can see what he was excited about. You can see how he was writing, how he was expressing emotions. I think that shows some of our growth year over year, which I also think is really cool. So you can do this practice on a month timeline. You can do this practice on a day timeline, which is what a lot of gratitude, the 5-minute journal and things like that are allowing us to do. And then you can also kind of pull that out on a macro scale too. And just kind of finally, as a wrap up, would love to just sort of set an intention for you guys and just sort of reiterate, I think, how important it is to take these little moments of reflection. Whether that be 1 minute, we did it for almost 15 minutes. You guys are obviously spending more time than that just being in here itself. That it is a very, very important practice to kind of step away from always thinking about what more can I do, and instead think about what did I do that was helpful. And learning from those lessons then prompt better and more effective action in the future. So if you're type A, I'm just looking to get better, meditating's not for me, think about it like a performance strategy to do better. And if you're like, you know what, I don't need it, another person or another thing telling me to try and get better, all I want to do is achieve a sense of calm, you can use the exact same type of breathing and exercise like this to just take a step away from that for 1 minute, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, it all kind of counts. So we're just going to do one quick, like 3-minute breathing exercise. So you guys can close your eyes. Get back into that comfortable seat. And just take a really big exhale out. Just one really big breath in, and then just one really big breath out. And I want you to kind of keep doing that, even if it's out through your mouth. Just let your body kind of relax all of that stress away. I want you to let those exhales feel really, really good. Like you're getting rid of something. Now just settle back into your easy breathing. And I want you to set an intention for March. And if that feels too long, set an intention for your week, for the rest of the week, or maybe just for Tuesday, just for tomorrow. And the intention that I want you to set, I want you to identify a state or a kind of a state of being or a feeling. Calm is a great one. Grateful is a great one. Easy, light, patient. These are all feelings that don't include a lot of attached stress. Really hard to be stressed, really hard to be angry, really hard to be sad when you're grateful. One I set for myself a lot is I just say, just be easy. How can I go into the activities, into work, into conversations with that mindset and that mantra of just be easy? Don't come in guns out. We don't come in aggressive. We don't come in with any stressors that the last conversation may have brought up. We enter every interaction, every conversation, every new block of work, every new chunk of time with that same sense, that same intention. And it's a feeling that we're focused on. And the very last thing you're going to do is I want you to identify the feelings that are kind of byproducts of that intention. So if mine was be easy, shoulders would be relaxed, be smiling. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths before any type of transition in my day. My tone, the volume of my voice might be a little bit lower. What are those kind of feelings or byproducts of your mantra or that intention that you can attach to it and remember? Because that's really how your mantra, how your intention is going to manifest itself. It's going to be through your physical actions. It's going to be through what you feel, what you're thinking about, how you approach and how you walk into all those interactions and conversations and events. You take 3 big breaths, and I want you to lock in that intention for tomorrow, for the week, for March. Big breath in through your nose, big breath out through your mouth. 2 more. Big breath in. Big breath out. Last one. Big breath in. Last big breath out. Awesome job. You guys can slowly open your eyes and just return back to normal breathing. Thank you guys so much for joining tonight. Thank you guys for joining the first one or listening to it if you watched it after the fact. Again, we're just doing a lot of kind of bringing awareness to Dance with Wendy. If that's something you want to get involved with or you have questions about, please, you can message me in the chat. You can find me on Instagram just at Jason Loebig. Send us an email. I'd be happy to kind of talk you through it. And just thank you guys for your support. And thank you for listening. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to fire away.
Thank you, Jason. We're so grateful for you too. So we appreciate you being here tonight. Also, tell us a little bit about Live Better's retreats too, before you go.
Yeah, so we run 2 retreats a year. If you haven't seen them, you could just go to @LiveBetterCo on Instagram. We release kind of all of our information there, but we go down to El Salvador, which is in Latin America and Central America. And the retreats are everything wellness. So we go through training, yoga, breath work like this, performance related and relaxing. We do sound meditations. We surf every day. The food's amazing. The crew of people that comes down is epic. It's just a ton of like unbelievably relaxing time in the sun. And then we do a lot of time to kind of refocus, re-energize you. We go through your wellness routines, your work routines. Brett and I give a one-on-one coaching session to everyone that comes. We've got discussions on productivity and wellness design. We have dinner every night. There's wine. And it's just a really fun kind of full expression of wellness. But the big thing is the community that we build around it, how much support we give people after. Those people become friends, and it's kind of this like big momentum driven community that goes from one trip to the next. Definitely the most fun and rewarding thing that we get to do. There's one in 2 weeks. So if you want to send a last minute trip, you can send me a message. It starts on March 14th. And then we've got another one in November 7th to the 12th. And we're actually already taking reservations for that trip as well. So please reach out, ask questions. Would love to chat with you guys about tonight, Dance with Money, retreats, training, anything in between.